Hi, everyone. This is Jackie Cooper with GBA, and also I'm CryptoMom2. And I want to welcome back Ralph Benko to the GBA talk show. We are having ongoing episodes because there's so many pieces and to the blockchain community that we want to chat about. So we decided that we're coming back for a second episode, and I know this is not going to be the end. So today, this is actually a follow-up on another conversation I had with a gentleman who is also an inspiration and a thought leader in the community. And it was about the blockchain and the challenges that blockchain has in terms of scalability. And I interviewed Greg Meredith, and he talked about, RChain and a whole lot of other issues. Ralph and I are going to be continuing this conversation. So I want to throw this over to Ralph right now just to do a quick intro, and then I'm going to be asking him questions about RChain and some of the things that we've seen on the blockchain and why RChain actually might help with a solution that hasn't been solved yet. So how are you doing today, Ralph?
Fine, thank you, and thank you for having me, Jackie.
Yeah. So you want to give, I know you've shared this before, but for those that may not have heard you speak before, do you want to share a little bit about your background? I know you and I have talked about the fact that you have done so much, and it's an inspiration to me, and you have navigated so many pieces of this blockchain community. So I'm going to let you share a little bit about what you've done.
Well, my deep state history was that I worked as a deputy general counsel in the Reagan White House on detail from the Department of Energy General Counsel's office, but I worked in the executive office of the president for Reagan, of whom I was a great fan. He recruited me from, not personally, but generically, from the Democratic Party, which I was born and raised to be, into the Republican Party. And I was a very happy little Republican under Reagan. Now, not so sure, but nobody else will have me, so I'm stuck in the GOP, at least for the foreseeable future. I also worked with the George W. Bush White House. One of his signature domestic priorities was to identify and rescue human trafficking victims in the United States. I was one of the 3 field agents that were employed by his Department of Health and Human Services to go out into the field and develop stations on an underground railroad to bring together the police and the social workers and the feds and the locals and the church and the state and everybody to get together, because everybody agreed that human trafficking was a scandal. And how do we how do we put all the pieces of the puzzle together necessary to both recognize them and to rescue them? So, for instance, the local vice squad would know where to find them, most likely, but the Department of Health and the Department of Homeland Security is in charge of giving out the visas. So we have 2 completely separate agencies, one municipal, one federal. You need to know where to find them, and you need to know where to get them their visas in order to prevent them from being immediately deported, and so forth. Where are you going to put them? Anyway, I digress. So I was one of the 3 field agents for a multi-award-winning program to rescue human trafficking victims for the George W. Bush administration. And then I worked with my dear old friend Buzz Aldrin with the Vice President's office in the Trump administration, with Vice President Pence, who was the chairman of the National Space Council, which Buzz coveted an appointment to, and which I was able to facilitate his being appointed to the National Space Council. So I've worked at the highest government levels repeatedly, and it's been a great privilege. But I've also worked in tech, and a long time ago, I was the co-founder of an advanced materials processes company, but more recently, I've been very interested in the blockchain. And so I am now the senior counselor to the American Blockchain PAC, who's the chairman of whose advisory board is no other than W. Scott Stornetta, who with Stuart Haber invented the blockchain in 1991. I also spent 2 years as a senior counselor to the Perry Ann Boring Chamber of Digital Commerce, a very educational experience for me. And I've worked with several blockchain sector startups, from NFTs to content provision to stable coins and whatever. So I've had a very eclectic background in the sector, and I've also got a lot of policy chops as somebody working with the American Blockchain PAC, and in coordination with Alex Allaire's American Blockchain Initiative to help to formulate what the best legislation and regulation and overall policies will be to help protect the public while also allowing the sector to flourish. So last thing is, I'm with the exponentially smarter than me, Dawn Talbot. I'm the co-author of Redefining the Future of the Economy, Governance Blocks and Economic Architecture, critically very well received and available on Amazon and in better bookstores everywhere. But just to save yourself a bunch of searching for better bookstores, and just go to Amazon.com, look up Benko and Talbot and Benko, and order yourself a copy of Redefining the Future of the Economy. Dawn is a genius, and I learned, while I made substantive contributions, I learned a lot by co-authoring that book, and I think people will discover a lot of the missing links in the blockchain, because she spent 20 years on Wall Street and she really understands what's missing. The people who invented the blockchain didn't understand finance. And the people in finance are like, yeah, I can't use this because it's missing this and that. And Dawn is like, okay, why don't we provide this and that, and then you can use it. So Redefining the Future of the Economy is a little roadmap about how to do that.
And what you shared is actually, a perfect lead-in for what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to quickly share the screen, and then for those that are on the YouTube side, you'll be able to see the screen for a sec. For those that are on the audio side, the link will definitely be within the blog, and any links that we talk about will also be in the blog below. So I'm going to share the screen about the HackerNoon website, which is also going to be, in the blog below. And the article that we're going to be talking about, because of the content, which is really important, is Can RChain Solve Scaling Limitations in Blockchain? So that title in itself poses a lot of questions that we're going to be talking about. First, what is RChain, and what is scaling, and what is a limitation, and how do we actually use the blockchain? So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and we're going to talk about that. So where do you want to start? Because I know I had the honor of speaking with Greg Meredith, and we did talk about RChain, and there's going to be follow-up conversations about that. But this is one of the follow-up conversations to kind of expand on what was, talked about there. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the scaling limitations.
Okay.
And by the way, Greg and my column on Meetings with Remarkable Tech, Can RChain Solve Scaling Limitations in Blockchain? RChain is the chain that he invented using concurrency calculus rather than linear calculus. And it's been nominated for Contributor of the Year at HackerNoon. And so I'm proud of the critical reception that this article gave. And if anybody happens to want to go to HackerNoon and vote for it, voting will be open until November 15th, and we'd be grateful for. We're ranked #1 in scaling right now, but we're taking nothing for granted. Anyway, look, Bitcoin is able to do 7 transactions per second. Okay, and Ethereum is able to do 20 transactions per second. Okay, that cripples its ability to be practical. You can't go into a 7-Eleven and buy a pack of gum and wait, since all of these transactions are happening all at once, all over the world. Okay, you can't go in and give them your Satoshis and expect to walk out with a pack of gum, or if you're a major sinner, a pack of cigarettes, without having to wait for 15 or 20 minutes for the transaction to process. Okay, that money has three fundamental. Moneyness has 3 elements: unit of account, store of value, and medium of exchange. If it takes you 20 minutes instead of 20 seconds to do a purchase with a cryptocurrency, that means it's a terrible medium of exchange. So there are now some things like Lightning networks and so forth that are working at attempting to move it up to the Visa and MasterCard levels of speed. But according to Greg, who is a lot smarter than I am, so I'm taking this to the bank, okay? They do that. The Lightning networks create solve the scaling problem, but create a new problem, which is a centralization problem. In order to increase the number of transactions per second, they have to centralize, which is antithetical to the decentralized beauty of the blockchain.
Exactly.
Now, right. So Greg has invented this thing called RChain, which is an open source chain that uses a form of mathematics called Rolang, which is the Rolang calculus, which is an embellishment on the pi calculus. And please don't ask me what pi calculus or Rolang calculus means. Okay, I just know that it means really smart stuff, really smart math. Okay, and by using the RChain, you can get something like 1,000 transactions per second per node, and the way one of the beauties of the RChain, which is just emerging in the field now for the first time, is that the more devices you put on the chain, the faster it goes. So rather than burdening it with more transactions, because it uses concurrency as opposed to linear, meaning all of these transactions are processed at once as opposed to one after the other, which you can do because the guy who's buying a muffin in a bakery in Washington, D.C. is not really in competition with the guy who's buying Thai food in Thailand, pad Thai in Thailand. Okay, the two will not. You can process them both at the same time because they are differentiated enough that they will not they will not confuse the mainnet and thereby conflate the two of them. So this is a very big deal. And if I call RChain the golden needle in the blockchain haystack, because everybody for years, ever since I first encountered it, is very excited about the potential of the blockchain. But because of the scaling limitations, you don't see it anywhere. When there were no use cases for websites, you created pets.com and went bankrupt. You created amazon.com and became one of the richest men in the world, in the history of the world. Okay, a use case implies a hypothetical, hey, maybe it can be used for this. And we got plenty of use cases, but we just don't have very many uses. Okay, and the reason we don't have very many uses is because of the scaling limitations of both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And of course, there are plenty of other cryptocurrencies out there, whether it's Dogecoin or whether it's Solana or Zcash or whatever. There's a lot out there, but the scaling limitations have really limited the utility of this absolutely transformational breakthrough. And I believe that RChain is going to turn out to be the thing that breaks the bottleneck and makes the blockchain the fundamental infrastructure for the metaverse, and that it's going to be it doesn't have the same kind of energy consumption or potential climate change impact that proof of work does. And you know, as for proof of stake, we were still looking for what would allow that to scale. I've talked to Greg about it. He says that even post-merge, Ethereum will not scale, but RChain will. And so come one, come all. Jackie wants to hear from you so that she can plug you in and tell us, you know, and tell us that she's found a willing investor or a willing adopter. And we'll be very grateful to you if you pass that information along to us, Jack.
So one of the things that while you were talking, I had a lot more clarity about what you meant by scalability, because being involved in this world, I don't always think, what does it mean transaction wise? We hear about in El Salvador, they're adopting Bitcoin to help with their economy. We hear about other
No. They're adopting Bitcoin to destroy their economy. I don't want to quibble with you too much about that.
Well,
they're adopting the volcano Bitcoin. Okay.
Well, we'll have another conversation about that. We'll have another conversation. But in terms of what you were saying, in terms of how many transactions per second can be used, and both from the Bitcoin side, Ethereum, from all these other platforms, as a user, I'm speaking about myself personally, I don't always think, okay, it requires this, and then if someone else is also purchasing at the same time, it would require this in order for the speed to happen, in order for it to be comfortable for the consumer and the public. Because the challenge is if you have to wait in order for your card, your Bitcoin card or your credit card, however you are using it with a cryptocurrency, to be processed, you're standing there with your coffee cup waiting for it to go through, and that's not going to be usable in the commercial sense. So the idea that RChain is able to process that many transactions means that more consumers can then start using the blockchain for the purpose of commercial applications, which makes it more usable. But
it gets better. That's true, but it gets better, and that is because of the limitations of Ethereum and the incumbent mainnets. Okay, we don't store data on the chain. It's too expensive. It would cost you thousands of dollars to store half a megabit of data on the Ethereum network. Thousands. Okay, the data is stored elsewhere, and the hashes are on the chain. Okay, because RChain, and by the way, that's terribly inefficient to have your blockchain in one place and the data to which your blockchain refers somewhere else. Okay, RChain puts the data on the chain. We have videos of it both storing and retrieving video density data on chain itself, which is huge. If you'll forgive me, a little bit of fangirl stuff. But beyond that, it's even huger because right now the blockchain is not searchable. Imagine the internet without Google or any of the other Yahoo or Bing, or imagine the internet without a search engine. That's what we have with the blockchain right now. But because RChain uses concurrency, you can store data on chain and you can search on chain directly on. You can store your data on chain and the data becomes searchable, which is a very, very big deal. So it's scalable, it's storable, and it's searchable. These are all major leaps forward in terms of the utility, the actual usefulness of the blockchain that I haven't seen elsewhere. Now, I haven't seen everything, and I have definitive proof that I am not infallible. I voted for Jimmy Carter in 1976. What was I thinking? Okay, so I've lent my infallibility powers off to the Pope, who needs them even more than I do. Okay, and I'm terribly fallible, but I am so excited to discover a storable, searchable, scalable blockchain that I think is going to be the game changer when it comes to the sector.
So I want to kind of follow up on the question about searchability. So just because I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. So I know that there's different blockchains. For those that are new to this, there's Bitcoin blockchain, there's Ethereum blockchain, there's different blockchains. They don't always communicate with each other. So you sometimes need access roads to be able to go over and transfer coins or things. And when you talk about searchability, are you saying that you can actually search a different blockchain? Is that what you're talking about?
You can search. Okay. You can search all the data that you store on the RChain becomes searchable on the RChain. Okay, we can't save Bitcoin. We can't save Ethereum. We would love to, but I'm sorry, there's just, they're not constructed for storing data on chain, for searchability, or for decentralized scalability. We're so sorry, guys. We really admire everything that you've done and the almost $1 trillion of market cap that you've built up. But now we've got something that is exponentially better.
So basically what I'm hearing, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So this could be the next Google, meaning that for being able to search whatever is put onto the RChain's blockchain, information wise, you can use it like that.
Well, yes, except for this is not going to be the next Google. This is going to be the Googleplex. Google to the order of Google. Because as Greg explained to me, I hope I'm getting this right. If not, it's on me, it's not on him. 99% of the internet is not searchable right now. What we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. GitHub is not searchable. Once we put the data onto the RChain, the internet is going to become exponentially more valuable, because the access to data that is currently non-searchable is all of a sudden going to be made searchable. So it's going to be an extraordinary breakthrough in terms of the ability to find and retrieve information. So,
and that to me is really important. As teacher, I'm thinking about all the applications that this could have, and the global strength that this could have, in terms of sharing information. So I guess, again, I'm not a techie.
But before let me just embellish with one other.
Yes, please go ahead.
Because to me, it was a revelation to me in terms of understanding the significance of the RChain's invention, and that is, when you're on the web, 99 or 99.9% of your transactions are data-based, not financial-based. Okay, because of the accident of Satoshi's invention of the Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, okay, the entire sector, the value of the entire sector is focused in the financial value, not in the data value.
Exactly.
In reality, all day long, you might buy one thing with PayPal, right? Or you might buy something on Amazon with your credit card, okay? But fundamentally, you are going to be having somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times as many transactions accessing data, reading an email, sending an email, going to a website, researching, going to a bookstore on the internet at Gutenberg, going to Google Maps, going to Google Docs. These are all data-based transactions, not financially based transactions. And once the RChain is taken to the point where it's beginning to really scale in a Moore's law kind of way, which Greg knows exactly how to make that happen, okay? Then what you're doing is the value is going to come from its data processing, not its financial transactions. That's just the way the world works. Most of what we have to do has to do with data, not finance. And RChain opens that up in a way that is far more profound, far more valuable than anything that at least I've seen to date before this.
So the other thing that you said that stood out to me is that the other blockchains, and I'm looking at the article, and I was talking about, for example, OpenSea keep digital assets associated with NFTs stored off-chain. Again, it's the idea that you have this separation going on while RChain has everything in one area. That to me also implies that there's more protection of information, because if you are splitting information to two different sources, that means it could be hacked. There's an area of potential weakness.
It's actually worse than, it's actually far worse than that.
Okay.
Because in theory anything can be hacked, and let's give Google and Amazon and so forth credit for the billions of dollars they invest in preventing from being hacked, and very successfully, okay, because they know that data security is critical to people trusting their platforms, and so they take it very seriously. That said, the problem is less one of fear of being hacked, but more fear of data about you behind somebody else's firewall. Okay, the thing about RChain is your data is behind your firewall. Okay, and you don't have to worry about relying on the good faith of Mark Zuckerberg or Tim Cook to be protecting your data behind their firewall, or not exploiting your data in ways that you'd rather that they not, because they have full access to all of that data about their customers. And by the way, it's not spying. It's not stalking. They don't care about me. Listen to my heart break. Okay, I'm just one of the part of a demographic, and if they want to know whether it would be stupid to serve up ads for tampons to me, and you know what, it would be. That's a waste of the advertiser's money. So there's a big bin of people not to sell tampon advertising to. Okay, and if they happen to find out, which I have no objection, that I like Guinness Stout as a beverage of choice, then they will advertise stouts to me, okay, which is smart because they know I like stouts and it's more valuable to me too. Okay, so I'm not nearly as hysterical about the privacy aspects than a lot of people are, but I am hysterical or concerned, motivated, inspired by the data ownership kind of thing. Okay, if all the stuff that Amazon knows about me, they decide that they're going to start charging me for, which they have the power to do, or they decide that they're going to be exploiting it in ways that they haven't exactly asked me, maybe buried on page 32 of their terms of service, I've agreed to something or something. Okay, I'm not exactly nervous, but you know what, darn it, I'd like to own my data. And the other reason I like to own my data is, hey, if anybody's going to be making money selling my data, I'd like to have a piece of that. And right now, Amazon, right now, Facebook and Google, they make gobs of money. God bless them. I'm the chairman of the Capitalist League. I'm not against making money, but because their costs of maintaining the data about me and serving up ads is so low that their profit margins are like 40% from what they get from the advertisers. Okay, the profit margin of my corner grocery store is 2%. Okay, it's like, wow, this is great. Could I have some of that, please? It's like, I would like, by going to RChain and allowing us to maintain proprietary interest in our data, we can do whatever we want, nothing or everything with it, but I'm just going to lease my data. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to lease my data out to Facebook and Google, and they're going to pay me some percentage of the revenue that comes from, my share of the data. Now, am I going to get rich off of that? No, but hey, even if I'm just making a couple $100 a month while they're making a couple $1 billion a month, hey, it's my, I would like to be compensated for the use of my valuable data. There's nothing unethical about what they're doing now. It's just, this is the creative destruction of Schumpeter in the market. And so on RChain, I get to own and control my data. And I feel good about that.
Everything that we've talked about today is fascinating to me. For everyone who's listening, both on the audio side as well as on the YouTube side, I'm definitely going to be putting in information so you can visit RChain. You can visit where the articles are and have more, the
RChain, you can't visit RChain. RChain Co-op went bye-bye. Okay, the RChain still exists. Okay, but you have to know where to look. We're not trying to keep it a secret. It's just until the next entity is out there, and it's going to be a little bit exotic, unless you happen to be Larry Page or Sergey Brin, who basically say, hey, Greg, I've got $50 million and I'd kind of like to buy into the future RChain. Then for for the lumpen proletariat like me, you won't be able to find it, but you will be able to find a lot about it if you Google RChain, Greg Meredith, Ralph Benko. If you go to Hacker Noon, there's an article about us there, article by us there. There's an article at the Economic Standard that we wrote. There's an article at Blockchain magazine, I think. So we haven't been shy about putting the message out there, and hopefully it will soon become it will soon become one of those overnight successes that only took 20 years to get to its overnight success.
Well, we'll definitely have links so people can reach out and learn more about it for sure. Any last minute thoughts? I know we're going to have more than one conversation, but any last minute thoughts about RChain or any of the other things that we talked about today? I know that I'm always learning whenever I speak with you, so I appreciate that.
Well, that's fair enough, but I'm always learning when I speak with you too. So look, it's to quote one of my favorite columnists, Scott Galloway, who I just teased in an article that I co-authored or authored or something like that. I'm such a promiscuous writer; it's hard for me to keep up with myself. But he likes to close out his weekly newsletter with the words, "Life is so rich," and I'll drink to that. So the blockchain, the future, if a quarter, if a tenth of what I believe about RChain turns out to be the case, the future is so bright, you gotta wear shades. So thank you for helping us get the word out, Jackie.
Not a problem. Everyone, definitely like and subscribe to the GBA Talk Show. Definitely visit me on mine, CryptoMom2. We are constantly going to be having topics of the day, current events and trends, and trying to answer any of the questions that you have. So definitely reach out to me. We're here to help and support and to raise the next question that needs to be answered. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ralph, for being here, and everyone have a great day.